Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll learn to become a better designer so you can dominate your competition. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I've got a special guest, Trish Witkowski, to talk about print, direct mail, and folds. Stick around to get educated and inspired so that you can wow your next project and get great results. Trish Witkowski specializes in creative solutions and engagement strategies for direct mail and marketing. She frequently travels and speaks to print organizations and their clients to illustrate the power of print. She is also the curator of the world's most exciting collection of folded print and direct mail samples, sharing the best of her collection in her popular e-video series, 60-Second Super Cool Fold of the Week. Trish is the president of Foldfactory and the creator of the award-winning Fold Right folding template system. She has authored many resources, including Direct Mail Simplified and paper folding templates for print design. Trish is an instructor for LinkedIn Learning and holds an MS in printing and a BFA in graphic design from RIT. Welcome to the podcast, Trish.
Hi, Colleen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So, for years, people have been saying that print is this dying medium. And, I personally prefer it. I'd much rather have a printed book that I can take anywhere, and highlight it and dog ear the pages. And I can't help it, but I love the smell of paper and varnish.
So I don't think you're alone in that, actually.
Okay, great. Otherwise, that might make me a little bit of a freak.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people that think print is a dying medium?
Well, here's the thing. Today we're all consuming more than 8 hours of media every day, and most of that media is digital. And so what's happening is the time that we don't spend digitally actually has more value to us. Have you ever had an entire day at your computer and then you get home and you realize your favorite magazine arrived and you're like, everybody leave me alone. My magazine is here. I just want to sit down and read my magazine. And there is now so much more value, and that value is actually a huge opportunity. Not everyone's seeing that as an opportunity. They see it as, well, there's less mail in the mailbox, so that means no one's mailing, and that means, print is dying. And it's not dying, it's changing. And the technology has changed dramatically over the past even, 5 to 10 years, even in particular, with all the different things that can be done in shorter runs, special effects, all sorts of things that, you couldn't do before in smaller quantities. And that's given people tremendous power in their ability to target their audience. And one of the best ways to do it is through print. And print also is not kind of a singular strategy and shouldn't be. It should support the rest of your, marketing strategy as well. But it becomes this kind of tangible thing that people realize, oh, this is real. I mean, anybody can throw something up on a web page, on a website, and start running a business. But print is a commitment.
Wow, those are great points. Well, and I feel like a lot of designers really neglect paper choice when they're designing something. And I feel like they also kind of neglect folds, or they just consider the typical letter fold / trifold brochure. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. I'm glad you actually positioned it that way, because it's funny. That's really how Foldfactory began. My background is in design, and I was working as a designer for RIT's University Publications Department while I was going for my master's degree over there. And we used the same few folded formats for everything. And part of it was a time crunch, and part of it was, well, it was easy and it was there and it was what we knew. Mm-hmm. And so I would then be out and about somewhere, and I'd get a special invitation, or I'd get something, and I'd go, whoa, I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know that could be done. And so my pursuit of kind of figuring out for myself, actually, it ended up being for my thesis, for my degree, but I decided I wanted to figure out the different ways you could, how many different brochures are there? And in my, early 20s, as I was, doing this, I'm thinking, how many could there be? And thousands, I've seen, thousands of creative formats at this point in my career. And I'm almost to 500 episodes on Fold of the Week, and still seeing new, exciting things that I haven't seen before. So, the variety is amazing, but a big part of the I think the issue for designers is that, everybody's short on time. Nobody wants to make a mistake. A lot of these formats that are creative, require some technical knowledge in trying to figure out how to make the die line correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And, you kind of go, okay, if my likelihood of getting this approved is slim, do I want to put the time and effort into trying to make this thing so that I can comp it up and have it shot down anyway? I'll just give them the trifold and get on
Right.
with my day. You know what I mean? and
Right.
and so it's kind of interesting. I think some of the formats are ultimately aspirational. I mean, we show a lot of really, really, really cool things, and at the end of the day, I think most of the time people use some fairly straightforward formats, but there are lots of great little tweaks and strategies and things that you can do to really add impact and change them up and everything. But then I think knowing that you could do something really exciting and special when you have the opportunity, and that's why we started doing die lines and samples and things like that at Foldfactory, is because some of those die lines can take even a pro hours to build. And they're so specific in where the compensation is, and paper's dimensional, and you got to make this panel a little shorter and this one a little, you know and so that was part of our strategy, was to kind of decrease that amount of time that it takes to start working on something that is different and more fun and whatever, what you're looking to do, and to make it more within your budget, or within your workflow. So it really started as more of a challenge to myself and turned into, I didn't start out with the intent of creating a business around this. It just happened.
Wow, that's interesting. And like you were saying with budget, I think that a lot of designers sometimes assume that anything that is a little different from what they normally do, that it might be too expensive. So I think it's always really good to like have a relationship with a few printers, an ongoing relationship with a few printers, so that you can actually consult with them beforehand and not like wait until the project's done. And then you find out when you're going to get estimates for the client that, oh, well, we can't spend that. That's too much money.
Right, right. And I think too, so much of the equipment and the processes and all sorts of things have changed dramatically as well. And you have to talk to the printer early, and think of them as kind of an extension of your team, because they're
Yeah.
going to say, all right, look, if you make it, an inch shorter, you can get two more, one more up on a sheet, and we can
Right.
save here, and then you can get that special, coating, or UV spot, that you want, or we can, get your specialty paper that you're looking for, or whatever it is. I think that it's all about that communication where you're not up at the end. And I think that is what keeps people from doing new things as well, as they just feel like, well, I don't have time. I don't know who to ask. I don't know who to talk to. I don't want to make the wrong thing. I don't want to sell the client on something they can't afford. And so
Right.
I'll just go back to what I know the customer is going to be okay with. I think because everything has changed, I mean, there's so many things now that can be done, automated, or even, super low quantity, where, for example, if you're familiar with some of the laser cutting and creasing machines that can do, dynamic laser cutting and creasing, without a metal die, and all sorts of just fascinating things going on, where, you can get real high quality results in, shorter runs. And there are so many things that were just so cost prohibitive. And I think we kind of were trained, don't even think about a die cut. Oh,
Right.
don't even think about, it's kind of like, okay, but if your printer has a laser cutter, or if I always tell people, to even think about, I call them like pre-enjoyed dies, metal dies that already exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your printer's making all these dies for all these everybody else's projects. They probably have hundreds of them, and they store them. Like,
Yeah.
ask about, do you have an iron cross that have you guys done one? Oh, well, we did a, 6x6, oh, all right, well, I can work with that. Okay, well, then at least you don't have the $250 cost for the, metal die to be created or something. Like I find that there's so many times there are ways around some of these things. And, you just have to be open-minded and creative. And I think that it all begins with talking to the printer and keeping them involved as part of the team.
And, I tell clients that might be considering not doing print because of cost. I tell them, don't neglect print because there's actually less competition in the mailbox.
Right.
And you can actually stand out more, and that might get you a better return on your investment than spending a little bit less with something electronic,
Yeah.
but everybody's doing that. You have to wonder if they even got it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, there have been some really fascinating kind of case studies and stories and lessons from, even recent past where companies have, for example, stopped sending their catalogs or something. Oh, well, our online sales are so strong that we don't need a catalog. Why are we spending all this money on a catalog? And then they get rid of their catalog, and then they realize that their sales drop off dramatically. Land's End famously had this happen, and they realize that the catalog is what reminds people. They look through it, and it drives them to the website. It becomes that catalyst, and there have been all sorts of studies about how consumers actually prefer to shop online with a catalog in hand. And that, and I even think of my own habits. And a lot of times I'll get something, I'll grab the catalog, I'll bring it with me to my computer and I'll take a look, I'll type in the key code or whatever, and I'm shopping. And I always tend to find more stuff while I'm there.
Right.
There was also studies about, I think there was a Nordstrom study about how their customers who receive the catalog versus the ones that don't have a higher average purchase than the ones who don't receive the catalog. So there are all sorts of different studies and data around how that print piece can drive those other sales. But the problem is, attribution sometimes. Like people see them as separate things. Well, no, everybody's buying online. Well, they're not realizing that, well, the reason they're buying online is because they received the printed piece. They're looking at these as separate things. The one supports the other and drives the other. So there are some really neat things, I think, going on with that. And those become real drivers.
That's interesting. What are some ways that you can really get good response rates when you're doing something for the mail? I mean, do you want to choose a special size, a special fold, certain kind of coding? What are some ways that you can do that?
Here's the thing with mail. So many of the key factors of mail have absolutely nothing to do with the aesthetics of the piece. So your most important and the biggest mistake, most expensive mistake you can make in mail is to send it to the wrong list. So your list is your absolutely, most important thing. You've got to make sure that you're sending stuff to the right people. Then you need to make sure that you're sending them a compelling offer that they're willing to go for. Is it compelling enough? Also, timing has a lot to do with it. The timing of when it arrives. And also, do you, for example, a lot of people send mail with no call to action. Or if they have a call to action, they don't have an expiration on that offer. So there's no urgency. So you need call to action and sense of urgency. And if you don't have those things, then you've really got kind of an open-ended offer. And so it's like, okay, well, is it over? Maybe not. Did it work? Did it not work? I don't know, because we don't know when it really ends ever. And so a lot of things have to do with those kind of simpler things. And then beyond that, aesthetics are very powerful once you get through those kind of fundamentals, right? Your list and your offer and your timing. Once you get through that stuff, oh my gosh, scale is a huge one. No pun intended there. Scale. Scale. The larger envelopes tend to have higher opening rates. You can do some, really simple things. Texture is a big one. Just even creating texture, whether it's, if it's a self-mailer or whether it's on an envelope or just distinctive textures. If you subscribe to Fast Company magazine, they have a sandpaper UV coating on the outside of the cover.
Wow.
And you know that you're holding Fast Company before you even look down. You don't even have to look at it. The Fast Company came. And so just the texture stands out. I have a friend who's an incredible direct mail strategist. His name is Ted Grigg. He's out of Dallas. And he said to me, he said, Trish, everybody thinks that they have to be really, really different, but sometimes you just have to be a little different. And he said, people spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out why. They want a formula, kind of. If I do this, this, and this, am I guaranteed, a result? And that's kind of, I think, one of the biggest challenges for people when they're trying to sell the concept of sending mail, is that everybody wants kind of a formula and a guarantee.
Right.
And, human behavior plays into this. And he said, sometimes people spend so much time trying to figure out the why that by the time they figure out the why, people's tastes have changed. People's preferences have changed. So he said, you need to test. He always says to me, he says, don't test whispers. So if you're testing different things, don't test these teeny little, I moved the text from one side to the other. Let's see if the response goes up. I changed the color from green to blue. Let's see if the response goes up. Test larger strokes, scale and texture and message and, a different type of offer or things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. And he said there are a lot of times when things that you just are, really sure will be the thing that wins or tests out really well. Sometimes the plain white envelope wins. And he said, you just don't always know why, but sometimes it's because it's different. But the point is changing, watching, testing, and sending stuff. I think one of the biggest mistakes with mail is people say, well, I'll give it a shot. They'll send one thing and they'll go, well, mail doesn't work. Told you so. And mail is a conversation. It's a relationship. It's an ongoing thing. If you're just going to pop up once every 6 months to say hello and then disappear, don't expect to, get huge results out of it. But that's I think with anything. Look, I think if I only did Fold of the Week whenever I felt like it, I may not have that many subscribers. You know what I mean? I think because part of what people, I think, like is that bit of that familiarity and predictability of your presence. What I think keeps people watching my show is that every time it's different and it's unpredictable with regard to what I'm going to show. But the format stays the same and the timing stays the same. And people know that on Thursdays, I'm going to send them something cool. And you don't know what it's going to be. And there's going to be something funny on my shirt. And like every time, there's going to be a couple little surprises like that. But the format's the same. You got the intro music. You got the this. I've always got kind of a certain process to it. There's got to be kind of a plan with mail. And if people need to see it and they need to, that relationship has to stay there.
Those are great points. Yeah, I could just see like if the white envelope wins, to the dismay of the designer, right? You'd be like, oh, why? Just like when you send client a couple designs and they always choose the one that you don't want.
Right. They always pick the one that you just threw in there as like the third one to kind of get right away. They're like, oh my God, we love this. And you're like, stop. No, I didn't mean that. Can I take that one back? Yeah. And that's the funny thing. I was telling you about my friend Ted. He was saying, do you know what a snap pack is? It's like those mail pieces with the edges you tear off. You like tear the sides and tear the top off. It's called a snap pack technically in the direct mail world. And he goes, snap packs are the least sexy form of mail on the planet. And they tend to do well in the mail. And he said they're designers like nightmare because they're so plain and designers hate them. But he said people take them very seriously. They're this sealed thing with the edges and they look official. And people are like, I've got to open this. And so he said, sometimes the things that perform are the things that we don't think are going to perform.
Right. That actually, the official looking comment, that reminds me of like 20 years ago. I was working at a publishing company doing some direct mail and everything had to be done in like courier, like as a letter.
Right.
And I'm like, who do you think you're fooling? Like people know that this is done on a computer, not a typewriter. And I always thought it was so funny, but they're like, we've tested this package and it works really well. But I just thought it was like the worst looking thing ever.
Right. And isn't it the funny thing about it? Just sometimes it's just human behavior and what people like and what they respond to or whatever,
Right.
It's funny stuff.
if somebody wants to do a direct mail package, they could do something more in the form of like a self mailer where it's just like one piece, or they could do like a package that has like maybe a letter, like a carrier envelope, which is an outer envelope,
Yep.
and then a response, also known as a reply card, and then of course the reply envelope. And I've heard that like adding a lift note, which if any of you don't know what that is like a small piece. It could be like a 3x5 little piece. Sometimes you put it on a glossy stock so it's different from the letter paper. I've heard that
Like a
can,
little endorsement, kind of like a little expert endorsement or celebrity endorsement, or it's kind of that third party that says, no, really, this is cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for taking either route, the self mailer versus a direct mail package? Are there any kind of statistics that support, doing one or the other? Or
Okay, so statistics on, which one, I would say not necessarily, because it's very situational. It so depends on what you're selling and what you're doing. I would say that direct mail packages tend to be for bigger decisions, products, subscription types of things, anything where you want to either get kind of recurring money or a bigger purchase. That's a multi-piece type of a thing where you're going to spend a fair amount of money to make all those pieces and put it all together and whatever. So you want to make sure that you're not going to use that, for example, to sell something low budget. You know what I mean? Little items and stuff like that. However, with that said, like your direct mail package is big, bigger types of things. But a letter, like a direct mail letter, is a very effective form of mail. Those can be great as kind of relationship builders. They can drive people to a sale. They're simple. Even things like a handwritten address has a 98 to 99% open rate, depending on, of course, what you're doing. Obviously, you can't handwrite if you're sending 10,000 pieces, you're not going to handwrite everything by hand. But it's this idea that can you increase that open rate somehow, make it look important. And sometimes, one of the things that was really neat when to me at least, one of my favorite discoveries when I was studying mail very closely, is that the concept of postage and address strategy. The idea that even the postage you choose or the way that you place an address can be strategic and can provoke someone to open the piece. So, even thinking about little things like that can make a big difference. And then with regard to self-mailers, and even like large card or billboard types of formats, those can be great as just these almost like the drip campaign types of things, or special offers where you just want to get someone's attention, tell them, hey, this is on sale, buy it now type of a thing, all visuals, color, whatever. Those large card or billboard formats are great also for drip campaigns to, send people a tip. I mean, people I think sometimes think with mail, well, I can't have a sale all the time, and I can't do that. And it's like, that's not necessarily how it has to work. You can send a helpful tip. I don't know, depending on what business you're in or whatever it is, send a helpful tip once a month or every quarter or something. It's just a top of mind. Say you're a legal firm and it's some sort of a nice, don't forget to such and such, but people kind of go, oh yeah, these guys, and when they have the need, that's who they think of. And then, yeah, if you're selling other types of products or whatever, maybe you've got a little mini booklet catalog that shows up. Okay, that's fun. Maybe there's the large card format for, a flash sale or a VIP, maybe there's a more of an invitation looking one for a VIP event at a brick and mortar location, come see, sneak peek, trunk show type of a thing, makes them feel special. There's lots of nice ways to kind of vary your mail and have different reasons for sending it. But I think too, so much of it just comes down to planning and timing. I think the harder part about mail versus digital media, I think, is that mail does take some time and planning, and it does take the upfront investment. And I think, it's kind of, okay, well, we ran out of time, and, by the time we design it and print it and get it and put it in the mail and this and that, and it's going to take, a couple days to get to everybody. You know what? Just send an email blast.
Right.
And that's the lost opportunity, I think, is when people kind of let it, they kind of leave it off their plan, or they don't have a plan. And then time slips by and we just skip it all together and we'll just do something digital instead and save some money and whatever. They think, oh, well, we've saved everybody money and let's just do it this way. And the print can really drive that loyalty, can really get people's interest and focus. And
yeah, that reminds me, my realtor always sends a postcard out twice a year, and he puts in a reminder about change the batteries in your smoke alarms.
yeah,
He does that. So you see his face at least 2 times a year,
right.
and it's a friendly reminder. So that's worked really well for him.
Right. And it's nice too, because it's kind of like he's not asking you for anything. He's actually just being helpful.
Right.
And you kind of go, that was nice of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, if anybody, oh, geez, we're going to be selling some, oh, you know what? We got a nice guy. He was great for us and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, it's very easy to just forget. We're just inundated with marketing messages and everything else in our day. And it just keeps that relationship and that top of mind. But I'm sure, too, for him, he knows that that's more of an investment in relationships. It's less of a driver of sales right away, but he may, see that he gets a bump here and there of people who jogs their memory. Oh, hey, I've got a friend who wants to sell, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, he gets a lead.
Right.
And it can be worth it. It can more than pay for that one little mailing.
Mm-hmm. So about paper choice, like what are some things to consider with direct mail, whether it's a direct mail package or it's a self-mailing piece?
On paper choice, I would say that, if we're talking about, are we talking about kind of like folded self-mailers and stuff like that, or?
Like what kind of situation would you choose, maybe coated versus uncoated? And then like how thick, what are some things you have to take into consideration with that?
No matter what paper you choose, I would always try to have a mock-up made, or get a sample sheet and physically make one myself or something.
A paper dummy.
Yeah, I think it's very, very easy to kind of feel a little swatch book, or to go from like your gut of in your memory of, well, last time we did, we've done 80 before, and let's just go with 80 text. And then you realize, oh, rats, I wish I'd gone a little thicker, and now it's kind of wimpy, and and then you're kind of stuck with it at that point.
Right.
And so I think it's always worth it to have some sort of a mock-up folding dummy, something made, or at least have a sheet sent, a couple of sheets of the paper sent so that you can play with it, or, a couple of weights to choose from. And with regard to kind of coated versus uncoated, I love both. I'm a paper lover either way, and I think there's some real benefits to both. However, I think coated tends to perform, with ink hold out and all sorts of other things. A coated sheet can take so many different finishes where you can give it the texture you want it to have, and yet you get all that richness of color and everything. I love an uncoated, like if your printer has a UV press, a lot of times that UV press can get the ink hold out and get a lot of pop in an uncoated sheet. So that's just something to think about. I love that kind of toothy quality of an uncoated sheet. I also like colored papers.
Me too.
I love that full kind of total saturation all the way through the sheet. But you can also fake that so many ways with a coated as well and make it look like it's a colored sheet. And, I think there's benefits to either way. It's hard for me. I like so many types of paper. It sounds very wishy-washy, but I really do struggle to say, I love one over the other.
Right.
I definitely like coated for its flexibility, and I love like matte and satin, and I like the different kind of opportunities there. I'm not a huge gloss person.
Me neither.
Yeah, I like a more natural look and feel. Like I love a classic, McCoy silk or something, that beautiful white. I don't know. I love that. But then I also really, really love, like a Mohawk Superfine, or or the eggshell one where it's like a little bit creamy. So I don't know. I struggle to pick a favorite. And it's the same if somebody asks me, what's your favorite fold you've ever done? They're like all my babies. I love them all. And each one I see value in, so it's kind of funny, but I like the low budget ones because of their kind of, I call them little low budget wonders. And then I also love the really elaborate stuff for its kind of wow factor. So it's very hard for me to choose on some of this stuff, because I also feel like so much in what we do as designers is really kind of subjective. We make decisions based on what we're doing, what we're presenting, who the client is, what their brand is saying, what the feel is. And so sometimes, if I'm not doing something for myself personally, then I don't really feel like it's my right to personally choose it. I don't know if that sounds weird, but do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like I
Yeah.
have to really know who they are, and then I have to communicate that. And so, of course, I have my little preferences on brands and things like that. But then I also have to look at it as what is best for them, what is best for the project, and what communicates the image or brand or message that we're trying to communicate. And I think that the substrate is such a wonderful way to do it. We can't touch that digital thing. We're under glass. And the beautiful thing about print is its tangibility. And I think that's one of the things we have to leverage. There's actually been some really interesting kind of on the neuroscience side of things. There's all these studies around how people start to feel a sense of ownership when they touch real tangible things. And that's why printers and brands and things are trying to mimic the look and feel of their products, because people start to get a sense of ownership or loyalty because something feels real. So there are printers out there right now who are developing textures that actually feel like real rubber and leather and wood grain.
Oh, cool.
And even not just wood grain, but different types of wood grain to different types of wood. It's actually, the neuroscientific term is the endowment effect. And it's all about how we take like tangibility as real. We accept it as real and we start to feel like it's ours. So, so there's a lot of power in sending something physical to people.
One of my old faves was the Fox River confetti.
I love that. I love confetti paper. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I loved Fox River's line.
Oh my God. I had the little, the paper promo that they would send out, like something you'd stick on a bookshelf and had like their paper books in it. Like I loved it. Yeah, I still have it.
Oh, cool. That's vintage at this point.
Yes, it is vintage.
You and I should probably like nerd out over this. I have a ton of like really cool kind of vintage stuff too.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I'll just send you a pic.
Yeah. Be like a vintage showdown, like, well, I've got this. Oh yeah?
Right. So what are some types of folds that a lot of designers may never have heard of?
All right, so I'm going to give you guys an assignment to look up a few of these because they're very hard to explain.
Right.
But they're super, super fun. So one of my favorites, and actually we have some formats that get, 60, 80,000 pins a month on Pinterest.
Wow.
And they are like the twist fold is one of them.
Twist? I hadn't even heard of that one. Yep. I didn't even see that in your book. Okay.
Yep. Oh, that's definitely like, if you go to Foldfactory's Pinterest, we have a lot, like so if you look at that original book, so you have my original books from like, my research was, it's hard to admit this, but was back in 2002, my original research. I've got like hundreds more since then. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and that was, that book had a couple, almost 200.
Right.
Yeah, I have hundreds more now. So twist fold and tulip fold are also big ones. Let me see.
Now, are you giving him these names?
Interestingly, in some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. So some of the formats have been either are ones that I've discovered through, I kind of have a network of printers and binderies and things like that where I will, they just send me great things over the years and I've kind of hunted them down and we've, and so some of that stuff has been through discovery and they'll say, well, we call this a such and such. And then I'd kind of ask a few, some of my research was where I would kind of go, what would you call this? And, oh, well, I would call that a this. Okay. And so once I made sure I kind of got consensus on it, I'd go, okay, well, then that's what this is. But then there are a lot of the specialty formats that I've kind of unearthed along the way that have not really had names or have names that are kind of derivatives of others. So there are some formats that are kind of, I would call them cousins or relatives of other formats. So for example, an iron cross is that plus shape that a lot of people have seen. But there's another format. If you look at our super cool folds on Foldfactory, you'll kind of see this. But there's the iron cross fold, and then there's what's called a 9-panel reveal fold, which has an iron cross base, and it has 4 additional panels that are reveal panels. And so that one is a 9-panel reveal, and it is that one, I think, I have to think back on this one. That one came from, I think, my friends up in Canada at Specialties, but they called it a reveal folder. And so we have a few other types of reveal folders. And so sometimes the name becomes kind of part of what is developing over time or is based on, so there's iron cross, there's T cross, which is a T shape, there's L cross, which is an L shape. And those are all kind of different, I guess, versions of iron crosses or relatives of iron crosses. And so sometimes it's just what makes sense or what people would likely accept as the name. Because a lot of the work that I've done, to be honest, is just new territory. Nobody had ever defined these formats, had never, kind of curated, classified, documented any of these.
Right.
My original work back in the early days was the first that anyone had ever documented of folded formats, which is hard to believe. I mean, I kept thinking that I was going to find a resource, and I never did. That was my fear, actually, as I was doing my thesis research. Is I was like, there's no way that that somebody hasn't done this. And I kept looking and looking. I thought, God, I could do all this work, and then I'm going to find a book somewhere, and it and it never happened. And so really so much of this work is original kind of first time documentation of these. So in some cases, I've set the terminology based on what I felt made sense within the research and within the framework of how it all works. And then some of it has been through asking and interviewing and along the way. And what's been kind of funny is over the years, I call it the fold of the week effect, but I don't know. But now that I've been on for almost 10 years on Fold of the Week, people have seen the formats, and then they've started to create a new category that I call hybrid formats, where they're taking characteristics of one format, the characteristics of another format they've seen, and they're combining them into a new hybrid format that has never been done before. Wow. And so that's what has really helped the entire, I guess, collection expand, is that people are starting to do more. Now that I'm not trying to take credit for all this, but you know what I mean? Now that the information is out there, I think that you take very, very creative people out in our audience here, and you give them really creative formats and ideas, and they make even more creative formats and ideas. And it's stuff that just blows my mind sometimes. I'll get things sometimes, and I'll just say, I just never thought I'd see a day where I'd see something like this. So that's been, I guess, the most rewarding part about my, career up to this point. Because it wasn't always, I mean, I enjoy it and everything, but there are times when it was hard to get 5 people in a room who were willing to listen to somebody talk about folding. So it's taken a long time to build momentum and to really, I guess what I would say, prove the value of the subject and of using format as a way of communicating information. And that's really what it is. It's the opening order. It's how we want people to experience the information, how we want to walk them through it, as well as it can be a creative expression. So, it's practical and creative at the same time.
And some of the existing types of folds, which you have in your books too, and I think you have some of these on YouTube as well, is like accordions and then gates, maps, parallels, and then rolls.
Yep. And those are kind of what I'd call like bread and butter, foundation folds. The good old hard work and day-to-day folds that we tend to go to. And then those can all modify in a multitude of ways. So
And the big thing, like with your research and with your books, is, addressing the file setup issue and like the
Yeah.
order of the folds. So
Yeah.
it's always like some designers don't realize that, when they first do this, that they have to account for like a short fold where there's a panel folding in, and depending on the thickness of the paper, they might have to, make that even a little bit shorter.
Yes. It's all folding compensation, and the dimensionality of the sheet is one issue. And then the other issue with a folded piece that really complicates things is, when we're doing page layout, we're doing things flat.
Right.
And if you even just think about a basic gatefold, if a gatefold is flat, the right fold-in panel is actually on the left if it's flat, and the left is on the right. Well, that's like a brain strain when you're trying to kind of, okay, the one that's on the left is actually going to be on the right, and what's on the right is going to be on the left. And so a lot of times designers will like design it as if it's closed and then break it up and then split it apart and try to, it can just be difficult to even just spatially figure out how to kind of break up a layout so that when it's folded up, it's all going to make sense. And I think that's also one of the drivers sometimes of the simpler formats and it's not just budget and production. Sometimes it's just, look, I can't visualize this in, upside down and backwards. And so it's kind of a combination of things, I think, sometimes that contribute to that. And so you really do have to think about it. I will say, one of the greater disappointments to me is that the schools, college programs don't do a lot of folded material. Everything, all of their portfolios are flat. Every portfolio I see or have ever seen, in most cases, it's poster design, stationery, business card, logo, maybe a postcard, but everything's always flat, and it's such a, I think, step up in kind of advanced thought for a student to say, okay, here's the content. You've got to turn this into a way to communicate through folded material. I actually taught for a while. In my earlier days, I taught design at RIT, and I also taught at University of Maryland, Baltimore County for a while as well. And that was one of my favorite things to do, was to give the kids these folding projects.
Oh, cool.
They would have to learn how to work with content and within a folded piece. And that's also really where our template builder came from as well. We have a template building software. It's totally free to use, by the way. It's at Foldfactory. If you just create a free account, it takes 2 seconds. You can use our template builder. And we make dynamically your file in InDesign, and place the fold marks and measure all the panels, and it happens in like a split second. And
wow.
And you just start designing. So we have it for trifolds, roll folds, accordions, closed gate, and basic 4-pager, and I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 base folds at least, and then you enter in your special size. So you could do it by sheet size or by finished folded size. And then we reverse engineer it based on that requirement. So it just, we dynamically make that for you in the software. So we're calculating based on, if you say, I want a 4-panel roll fold that measures 4 1/8 by 6 1/4 folded, go. Then our system goes, okay, measure, fold mark, fold mark, fold mark. Here's your link to download. And it's a 2-page InDesign file, and it tells you where the cover is and where the back cover is. Our goal is to just say, start designing. Don't worry about placing your folds, and don't worry about all of that. And that's also why we sell die lines, is to help people understand that, okay, well, forget about the math at least. Focus on the part that you do really well, and we'll focus on the part that we do really well, and it all works,
That's awesome. So the template builder is taking everything, it sounds like almost everything, if not everything, from your 2-volume fold books, and then putting that online and having it automated.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
the
awesome.
only thing it doesn't do, we took out a few things, and it also can't do anything that's kind of a specialty format, like anything that has too many variables.
Like with paperweight?
We actually have the ability to increase the, we have kind of a standard setting, and then you can increase the compensation if you're using a thicker sheet. But most of the time, the standard is what works. Yeah, that's been around. We've had that. It actually started out online. Then it was, and actually, I think we originally built templates for Quark Express, and then we stopped that.
I loved Quark.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And then somehow I switched over and I've never gone back. And then we became a plugin for InDesign, and then it's too hard to manage a plugin and deal with all the updates and stuff like that. So then we went back up into the cloud. Now it's just free. It's part of, we used to sell it and we used to do subscriptions and all this other stuff. And we said, you know what? It's essential for designers. Let's just make it free and offer it to everybody. It's fun.
Are there any other resources that you offer that can help designers?
Yeah.
I mean, those are plenty, but
no, thanks. I appreciate you asking. There are several things. So I've done 3 courses on LinkedIn Learning, which also was lynda.com. So I think lynda.com is kind of going away, and LinkedIn bought lynda.com, and I think they're kind of starting to take over and make it just LinkedIn Learning, but we'll see on that. If you have a lynda.com account, you can get to my courses. I have one on direct mail strategy. I have one on designing for direct mail. And then I have another one on folding and creative formats. So I have 3 courses. You can find them on LinkedIn Learning or on lynda.com. Of course, I have a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel for Foldfactory, probably 600 or 700 videos on the channel, almost 500 for Fold of the Week.
Wow.
And those are all, if you have a little time and want to binge watch, you can spend a little time over there. And then we also have a lot of stuff on Pinterest as well. We do have Instagram, Pinterest, all of that, all the different channels. But then I also have a couple of books, paper folding templates for print design. I've done some really nice work with Sappy Fine Paper. I've worked with them on some of their publications. So I did the Act Now direct mail piece with them. I worked on with them. So, if you have a Sappy rep or something that might be able to get you one of those are cool. I did do Standard. They do that series called The Standard. And I did do Standard 4 on folding and scoring, but I believe that one's out of print. That one just went like hotcakes. There's definitely a lot of content out there.
Well, this has been great. I mean, cool. I've been designing direct mail on and off for like 20 some years, but I mean, I learned so much from this. And I know the audience that they'll also have learned a lot from this.
Oh, awesome. Well, it has been so much fun. I love to chat this stuff. So I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I could totally sit here and talk about cork and paper and all those from the olden days.
Right.
If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Go to creative-boost.com where you can sign up to get notified of new episodes and posts, share on social media, or leave a comment. Thanks so much for listening.